Hello, folks, and welcome to Kabbalah Decoded. I'm taking an unusual, perhaps unprecedented step to make a recording which I'll post online in our YouTube channel and on our website, kabbalahdecoded.com. And the unprecedented aspect of this is that I usually give the class over in front of students, but today, because we are heading into the holidays, I won't have time for that, so I'm just going to record a class about this year, what the meaning of the year is in the Kabbalistic understanding of things. Now, the name of the year is always indicated by the number of the year. The number of the year in Hebrew, the letters of the Hebrew alphabet represent numbers as well as letters, and therefore, when we get a number like 5,777, which is the number of this year, in other words, it's the year 5,777 in the Jewish calendar, that can be represented as letters in the Hebrew alphabet. And the letters are, the letters of the year are Hey, Taf, Shin, Ayin, Zayin. Hey, Taf, Shin, Ayin, Zayin. 5,777. Now, usually when we refer to the year, we drop the 5,000 component a bit because it is much more of a generalized quality, but we want to understand the year 777. In the 5th millennium in the Jewish calendar, but let's understand what's called the Pratkaton, the more significant 777 issue. Now, whenever we have a concept in the Torah that has a name, anything that has a name in the Torah, its name is indicative of what its character is all about. As our sages tell us, that the name of anything in Torah is a clue to its chayut, the life force, the energy, that which sustains the particular thing. So the name of this year, therefore, would be Tafshin Ayin Zayin. And in order to understand what it's all about, it behooves us to seek out a verse where the initial letters of the verse or the end letters, the final letters of successive words actually spell out this name. I have done this analysis for many different people, and analyzing their names, their Hebrew names, or their names as they would be pronounced in Hebrew or written in Hebrew. Here we're going to do that for the year. In other words, it's a name analysis, so to speak, of the year. And we do find in the Torah that there is a verse that has all the consecutive letters of 777. In other words, Taf Shin, Ayin Zayin. Taf is 400, Shin is 300, Ayin is 70, and Zayin is 7. Let me share my screen and I will show you exactly what I am talking about. So here is, I'm highlighting now. The year is the year, Shnas means year, Taf, Shin, Ayin, Zayin. Yeah, the year, Taf, Shin, Ayin, Zayin, there it is. That's 400, 300, that's 777. Now, there is a verse in the book called Vayikra, which is Leviticus in English. So in the book of Leviticus, in the 4th chapter in Vayikra, Perek Daled, the verse says as follows, verse 22 and 23. I'm giving you verse 22 as well because it will give you the subject and explain the context of the consecutive letters. So, Asher Nasi Yechta, if, or when, rather, a Nasi, a leader, sins inadvertently, and I'll explain what all these things mean shortly. When a Nasi sins inadvertently, and v'asa kol mitzvos Hashem Elokav asher lo ta'asena, and he does one of the transgressors, one of the prohibitions of the Torah, bishgaga, inadvertently. He doesn't do it deliberately, but inadvertently. V'ashem, and he's guilty, in fact, of that transgression. Or hoida elav chatasoi, when he is made aware of the chait, of the sin, asher chata, that he sinned, asher chataba, that he sinned. V'hevias korbano, he should bring his offering, his expiation, his expiative offering, which is a sir izim, a goat, a male goat, zachar, a male goat, tamim, unblemished, as his sacrificial offering. Now, as you can see, the last letters over here of this verse spell out shin, ayin, zayin, taf, or taf shin ayin zayin. It's not right exactly in the right order, but it doesn't matter. It's the same thing, right? Shin ayin zayin taf. So if you want to look at the translation, these are the words that highlighted in yellow over here, unblemished male goat, are where you actually find this Se'irizim Zachar Tamim, where you find this verse. Now, of course, we have to explain what is going on, what this verse is all about. What is it talking about? So, the verse begins with the word Asher Nasi. What's a Nasi? A Nasi generally means a leader or a prince. But in this particular context, the sages pointed out that we're talking about the prince above whom there is no other prince except God. In other words, the king. Essentially here, therefore, we're talking about the king. Now, as you probably know, the king in the ancient world had basically unlimited power. And we find this in the Torah as well, that a king had basically unlimited power. The sages tell us that Omar Malka Akatura, if the king says you uproot the mountain, right? The king says he wants a road to go through this particular place, they will uproot the mountain in order for the road to go through that area. Omar Malka Akatura, let the mountain be uprooted for the king to pass through. So we see that even in the Jewish world, a king did have basically unlimited power. He had the power of life and death. If the king said that someone should be put to death, he was put to death, whether he had been judged that way by the Sanhedrin, by the Jewish court or not. He could be put to death. However, there's a major difference between a Jewish king and some of the other kings. Some of the other great kings from that time built all kinds of statues for themselves to commemorate themselves and temples and so on and so forth. The Jewish king never did such a thing, but that wasn't the major difference, that he didn't build all kinds of memorials for himself when he would pass on. For example, the pyramids in Egypt were really memorials for the pharaohs of Egypt so that they would be remembered. Similarly, there are many ancient kingdoms where they built statues to themselves, or they built stadiums and named them after themselves, and so on and so forth. However, the major difference is this. In the ancient world, a king was regarded as one who was basically divine. In other words, he couldn't sin. Whatever he did was righteous. Whatever he did was right. Whatever he did was unquestionable. The verse over here that we mentioned before indicates that this was not the case in the Jewish world. Nasi asher nasi yechta indicates that a king can sin, inadvertently perhaps, but he may sin. Commentaries, in fact, point out that the first word of the verse, which is the word asher, can mean if, but it can also mean when. Asher can mean if, but it can also mean when. When a king sins. Because when a person has so much power, he is liable to sin, if only inadvertently, but he's liable to sin because he's usually not thinking about his limitations, and he's not thinking he's given infinite power virtually. But here we see the Torah says, no, Not only is it true that if he will sin, but it's usually when he will sin. And in fact, the word Asher Nasi Yecheta, if I would just go back to the verse, 1 second, I'm going to share my screen again. It says over here, now the word Asher Nasi Yechta, if you take the first letters of the word Asher Nasi, that's Aleph and Nun and Yud. Aleph, Nun, and Yud spell the word Ani, right? Ani meaning me, I. Asher Nasi Yechta therefore indicates that a Nasi is someone who will sin because of his ego. His ego will lead him into incorrect type of behavior. So when a Nasi does something which is regarded as a sin, then this is to be expected according to this verse. It's when he will sin, because he's given such unlimited ego, therefore is likely that he will come to the idea of sinning. So that first word Asher could mean if, it could also mean when, and there is in fact a third meaning of the word. There's a third meaning of the word. The word Asher can also mean, as the sages of the Midrash point out, it is it's the basis of the word Ashrei, like the verse Ashrei, happy those who dwell in your house. The word Asher means happy. One of the sons of Jacob was called Asher because when he was born, his mother was happy. She was happy that he was born. His name is Asher. So Ashrei means happiness. So the sages go on to say, happy is the generation whose leaders acknowledge their mistakes and their fallibility, that they're not divine. That a human leader, is only supposed to reflect our spiritual leader, our divine leader, God. A spiritual leader, a leader of the people, in other words, the king, is only a reflection of, or should be a reflection of, the King of Kings. And that King of Kings is the one who the Nasi, the king down here, is required to emulate. But because he's human, he can err. To human is err, to forgive is divine. Isn't that a verse in Shakespeare or something? In any event, to be human is to err. And a human being, even a king, even a saintly king like King David, can make mistakes. King David, in fact, starts off his Psalms with the word Ashrei Ha'ish, happy is the man. So the word Asher, when a king will sin, but he acknowledges his shortcomings, he acknowledges that he did wrong, and he attempts to make amends, he brings his offering to God to cleanse himself of his negativity, to cleanse himself of the sin, then the generation is a happy generation, a generation in which its leaders can admit that they're fallible, that they make mistakes, that they're wrong. Is a good generation, it's a happy generation. Now, how does this relate to us? The idea of having a king is also relevant to us as individuals. We have three main centers in our physical bodies. There's the brain, there's the heart, and there's the liver. The brain is the intellectual seat, the heart the emotional seat, and what we mean by that is not that the emotions are actually in the heart, but that the heart is the reflection of the emotions. If a person gets very excited, the heart beats faster. If he gets afraid, his heart beats faster. If he's calm, the heart is much slower, and so on. In other words, all of the intellectual ideas that a person conceives have an effect on the emotions, which is visible in the heart. In fact, there's a whole section of psychology, a whole school of psychology, a modern school of psychology, which is very, very effective, and perhaps the most effective branch of psychology, called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. The basis of which is that the mind, what you're thinking about, your thoughts, your automatic thoughts, or whatever thoughts you have, are responsible for your emotions. Now, this is something that wasn't invented by Aaron Beck or anybody else recently. In this century, it was, or last century, it wasn't. It was already known to the sages of the Talmud. It was certainly known to the sages of the Kabbalah, and Rabbi Shneur Zalman Liadi writes about this in Tanya. Hamoach sholit alalev betivo betoldaso, and the heart naturally rules over the emotions. The mind naturally rules over the emotions. Thoughts give rise to emotions of one sort or another. So that's the heart. What's the kavod? What's the liver? The liver is the center of power of the body. It's the cleanser of the body, but it's also the center of power. When a person's liver is all clogged up, he's very lethargic, generally very weak, and unable to muster up enough energy to do things. So that's what the liver represents. Now, when the order of things is moach, brain, lev, heart, kaved, liver, that spells out the word melech. Mem for moach, that's the intellect. Lamed for lev, that's the heart. And kaf for kaved, that's the kaf of the word melech. So the word melech, a person is a king when his mind rules his heart, rules his strengths and his actions. But if the order is reversed, if, for instance, the heart rules the mind, the emotions rule the mind. In other words, a person is always simply justifying his emotional outbursts, not controlling them, but justifying, he uses his intellect to justify, then he's a lemech. Yeah, the heart comes first, lev. A lemech means someone who can't get anything right. Lemech was the famous person who killed Cain. He shot at him thinking he was an animal in the forest. And then he killed his grandson in his anguish, he clapped his hands together and he squashed his grandson's head. Let's not get into it. It's not relevant so much over here. But that's called a lemech, someone who doesn't get anything right. Right? So, in a microcosm, therefore, we also have this concept of nosi or melech. Melech means when things are in the right order. So if this is the year when the king acknowledges that he has transgressions, that he's done certain things wrong, and he admits that he's done them wrong. He admits it. That's the first step. He's got to admit it. And then he attempts to rectify it by bringing his offering. That is the year that is going to be an extremely happy, joyful, and a joyful year filled with delight, as we will in fact see shortly. So this is a year, therefore, the verse is telling us that it's a year of inner peace, through acknowledging inner peace and spiritual delight, through acknowledging our shortcomings, rectifying them, and moving on. Now, Kabbalistically, the letters of the verse. Let me share my screen again. Let me share. Here we go. All right, so the letters of the verse, as you can see here, the Tafshin Ayin Zayin, the letters of the verse, the way they are arranged here is they are arranged as, let me write this in red so you can see it easier. Shin, Ayin, and then Zayin, Taf. Right? Shin, Ayin, and then Zayin, Taf. That's the way the letters are arranged. Shin, Ayin, and then Zayin and Taf. Now, what does this mean? So the word Shin, Ayin in Hebrew, in Kabbalah, is indicative of what is called Sha'ashuyim Ha'atzmiyim, essential delight, the essential delight of God in His creation, and the essential delight of the soul in its good deeds and its good emotions. So therefore, when the Shin Ayin, the essential delight of the soul, which is called Sha'ashuim Ha'atzmim, the essential delight, is drawn down into the Zayin Tachtonim, Zayin Tet, Zayin Taf rather, stands for the Zayin Tachtonim, the 7 lower emotional qualities. In other words, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut, the 7 emotional qualities. When the delight of the soul, the essential delight of the soul, is drawn into the 7 emotional qualities of the soul, that is a time of tremendous joy and a year of great spiritual delight, which can be felt in the emotions. Similarly, when it is a year when the Sha'ashuim Ha'atzmim, the great delight of God in His creation, is revealed even in the lowest world, in the lower worlds, the emotional qualities of the world, when they're revealed in love and awe and compassion and all of the 7 qualities, all of the 7 emotional qualities of the soul, and all 7 emotional qualities of the Sfirot in all of the worlds. When the Shin Ayin Nohoirin, when the 370 types of ore of divine light, which is an expression of God's delight in the world, when it illuminates the emotional qualities of the world and the 7 days of the week, which are the Zayin Tachtonim, the 7 lower Sfirot, then it'll be a time of spiritual delight and a time of spiritual happiness, a happiness of God, so to speak, with the world around us. That is called the Shin Ayin Nohoirin Shemeirim Bezayin Tachtoinim, the 370 lights that come out of Keter that illuminate the 7 emotional qualities of the soul. So this year is going to be therefore a year of tremendous, hopefully, a year of tremendous spiritual achievement, spiritual delight, a time when we'll strive on perfecting ourselves and, of course, helping those around us to perfect themselves as well. A year in which we elicit the delight of God in His creation, and then it will be ultimately a year Hashem Oz La'amo Yitain, the last 2 letters, Oz. Last 2 letters mean power. God will give strength and power to His people, and our sages say that doesn't mean power over others, it means the power of Torah, the power to be able to cleave to God, to understand what it is that He wants, what He wants from us, what He wants from all of us, from the world. And then it'll be Hashem Oz La'amo Yitain, He will give it to us, so to speak, as a gift, that we will have knowledge of the divine ways. And then the earth will be filled with the glory of God, as Maimonides concludes his great work, the Mishnah Torah, with the verse that expresses that the world will be filled with the knowledge of God, like the water covers the seabed. Kamayim l'yam mechasim v'mala haaretz. The earth will be filled, and mala haaretz deya es Hashem, the knowledge of God. Kamayim l'yam mechasim, like water covers the ocean bed. Okay, folks, there won't be any classes for another 2 weeks as there'll be the holidays. I will get back to you as soon as the new classes begin again. So, all the best, and I hope you have good holidays, great holidays, and we'll be back in touch soon. Thank you.